My name is Bianchi, and I'm on track to graduate high school with an associate's degree. That's 2 years of college done in high school. That's crazy. But that didn't happen without some bumps in the road, and the biggest one of those is definitely my honors chemistry course. So guys, if you have ever super struggled with a teacher, just could not get along, could not do well in a class, then you're going to be able to resonate with this story. My name is Bianchi. This is Define Wisdom, and be sure to leave a like if you want more storytime-esque videos, subscribe to see all the content that I'm pushing out, and leave a comment with a story of a time that you didn't get along with a teacher. I know every single person that is watching this video right now hasn't gotten along with a teacher at some point, so everybody should comment. I'm going to back this up to just who I am as a student in general, so you have a little perspective when I go into the story. And really, in the end of the day, I don't particularly care about school. I've always been preoccupied with work or business or teaching myself other things. Overall, my focus has just never been on the education system, even though I tend to be pretty good at getting grades. And for a while, this dynamic between not caring and just getting good grades anyways created an unhealthy complex in my mind where if I wasn't easily getting good grades, then well, I wasn't the issue. Something was wrong with the class or the teacher. And in the end of the day, my standards weren't too high. I wasn't asking for A's. Really, I was good with B's or C's. So whenever I didn't hit that, then I was super offended. And I'm also really built for making my own path. And because of that, I never got along with teachers who like a more controlled classroom environment. I tend not to pay too close attention in class, and I don't really do all of the homework. Overall, in every class, I come at it differently, and I figured out an efficient way that I can get most of the knowledge into my brain. But this can clash with those teachers who are really trying to educate their kids and aren't just gonna be okay with somebody walking into their class and treating the structure like it just didn't matter at all. Which, to be fair, is kind of what I do. And I've had a few kinds of teachers. I've had the ones that I love, the ones that I hate, and the ones that I'm kind of indifferent to. The ones that I love generally respect my intelligence and understand my unorthodox style of learning, as well as my contentness with average grades. Even if they try and push me a little bit to get better grades, they don't do it too much, and really they're just appreciative that they can have a good conversation with me and I can engage in class. The ones I'm indifferent on are the ones that don't care about the classroom experience. They're kind of there to teach as a job, and I'm a very high maintenance student if you really want to treat me that way. So they didn't want to put the work in to actually clash with me. And then there's the ones that at the time I hate, although now in hindsight I don't have those same emotions. These teachers have their relatively strict classroom structure and really don't have time to hear my bullshit. They're not down for me not doing all the homework because they think it's disrespectful. Although from my perspective, it's not disrespectful at all. At least I wasn't actively trying to be. My participation in a class really isn't that personal, and some teachers can take it personally. But this teacher that I had in honors chemistry was kind of an anomaly amongst those categories. She ran her class really strict, and her goal was to generate prime chemistry students. She always really rooted for the underdog and was there for you to give the help, but sometimes she could come off a little harsh, and overall, she wasn't one for excuses. So if you were genuinely struggling and trying, then you'd see a much different side of her than me, who was struggling but not really trying. And to this day, I'll say, well, I just had other priorities than the teacher, and that's all well and good, but you're never going to be able to tell a teacher that her class isn't the priority. You should just give me better grades. Why don't I have good grades? It's never going to work out. So we arrived to the main story, my honors chemistry class. At this point, I was just accepted into the associate's degree program that allowed me to get college credits in high school, and I was really riding high on the ego from it. It's also important to know that in this time in my life, I wasn't particularly happy, and I was kind of going through all that like hormonal teenage BS, which really sucks. I'm so sorry to anyone who has to go through that, which everybody has to go through that. Like, oh my God. At least I was lucky. It only happened over like a few months. But the chemistry class itself was just a lot for me. There was a lot of memorization, a lot of self-education, and a lot of homework that counted for part of the grade. All of those things I wasn't really down for. All three of these things took too much time, and in the end of the day, I didn't want to contribute that much time to the class. So very early on, I started not doing well in the class because I would give the teacher an attitude when she gave me so many assignments, or I would just not do the assignments, and she didn't particularly like that. And then I would go to guidance and complain about her, which I'm sure wasn't really appreciated. You see, in my head, I thought I was the superhero student who was like standing up for everyone against the horrible teacher, but she wasn't a bad teacher. She just had a lot of academic integrity. There's a big yin-yang thing going on at this time in my life, because in history, I had basically that teacher's personality type, except for history. And the class was only structured minorly different. I just happened to be a little bit more naturally talented at history and writing, so I was able to succeed in that class. And the history teacher would go on to be literally my favorite teacher, and I view her as a god right now. But on the chemistry side, where it didn't come so easily to me, it wasn't for me. So I'm not doing any of the work. I'm butting heads with the teacher at any opportunity. And in class, I sucked. There's no way around it. I was heads down, not paying attention, not participating, not helping the people in my group. I was the kid that everybody hated. I also had that class with a lot of people I was friendly with, and I wonder if my behavior in that class had anything to do with my kind of social isolation that occurred later that year. I can think of this one example where I was trying to have a conversation kind of openly that had nothing to do with chemistry. It was really more of a social, intellectual conversation, and the teacher wasn't down for that. Now in history, there's always ways to tie that in, because like social history, like it all kind of works together. That might have been why I was succeeding in that class, but you put it in chemistry and there's like a lab going on or something, the teacher wasn't quite down for the conversation. And I can't blame her at all. I was being a dick. Another time she called me in front of the class, and this was kind of a Hail Mary attempt by her to just get me to participate. And I had my eyes closed on the desk because this class did put me to sleep. Like mentally, I was not there for the class. And it was some activity where we were supposed to hold, two people were needed to hold the rope on each side. I don't really remember what the demonstration was for. I don't remember anything about chemistry. But she wanted me to hold one side of the rope, and basically I did it in the most lackluster way. I might have even dropped it at some point. I was a dick. The nail in the coffin was that I was failing every exam, every quiz. I had no idea what was going on. I couldn't explain to you any chemistry at all. There was one subject that I was really good at, and that's really because it was just heavily algebra based, and I've always been good at math. But at one point, I had to hand in a blank test because I looked at it and just had no clue what was going on. I don't think it's an intelligence thing, because I know I'm intelligent enough to handle a class. I just didn't want to memorize the definitions and the periodic table stuff that we had to memorize. It wasn't for me. So I went to guidance towards the end of the first marking period and said, please put me in the normal level class. I don't get along with the teacher. I'm failing. Excuse. My guidance counselor doesn't take my BS either. I love her for it. But yeah, she said no. I was in the fancy college program that was really new, and they weren't sure if they wanted to set the precedent yet that you could drop out of one of the classes to a normal level course. And alas, I was forced to take the class for another marking period, which really just made me completely check out. I mean, at that point, I didn't feel like I had any option to be there, and when you force me to do something, nope, not going to end well. I continued the behaviors from the first marking period into the second, and the midterm comes, and I'm like, no, I have to do good in the midterm. For some reason, I had to do good in the midterm, so I called a good friend of mine over to my house who was good at chemistry. He tried to help me study, and that's when I realized it wasn't up there. I had no idea. So I take the midterm, I try my best, I hand it in. I'm like, maybe if I got all the questions that I was able to answer correct, and she takes pity on me, I can pass it? But I got a 55. And at that point I went to guidance and I was like, this just clearly is not working. And after a conversation with more and more excuses, they let me through. At some point in this process, I remember they called me and the teacher down to guidance to try and get to the bottom of what the issue was. And even though during that meeting, I remember in the time thinking like, oh, like, yeah, I'm totally showing how she's the issue. I was really just proving how I was the issue. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in hindsight with this situation. They let me drop chemistry. They put me in my first normal level class that I had taken since middle school, and I coasted through the rest of the year. Funny enough, I actually did really bad in normal level chemistry because it turns out there's a lot of busy work in normal level classes, and I don't do well with busy work whatsoever. So guys, what is the lesson with this entire story? And basically the gist of it is be self-aware. I push self-awareness a lot on this channel. I should have understood at the time, and I have since then developed the tool to look at myself from a third-person perspective. I've really mastered the ability to say, what does this kid look like to everyone else in the room? Had I been doing that at the time, I would have realized whose fault it was that I wasn't doing good in the class. But I also probably would have pushed to drop the class harder because I would have been able to understand the dynamic between my values, which weren't really into putting so much time into a class, and the class itself that I shouldn't have been taking. And even though the outcome would have been the same with me dropping the class, it would have been an entirely different conversation between me, my guidance counselor, the teacher, and had I just been truthful with them with really what they were looking at, I potentially could have just dropped the class the first marking period or sooner. That class did really tank my GPA. Leave a like if you want to hear my experiences with English teachers, because I have really never had a good relationship with English teachers until my last semester Brookdale course. I had a lovely teacher for my short stories class. I really do look back with a lot of regret on how I acted in that period. So if you're watching this and you're in school and you're really clashing with a teacher, just don't engage. It's not worth it. And in the end of the day, you might just look back and be, wow, I was a dick. Like, seriously, you're never gonna win the fight with a teacher unless the teacher really is messing up that bad. And in that case, take it straight to the principal's office. I don't play. But just sitting around with your friends, shit-talking a teacher in an attempt to prove that you're the big one in the situation, there's no point to that. In the end of the day, you need the number in the grade book. So get the number in the grade book, or accept that you're not gonna be able to get the number in the grade book, and just stop worrying about it. You can go to my video about what you should be focusing on. That can be heavily applied to this subject matter. A year after I dropped my chemistry class, I wound up emailing my chemistry teacher to apologize. I was going through a similar situation with my English teacher that year, although it was slightly different, and overall it was similar enough that I was careful not to make the same mistake twice. So basically, not making the same mistake twice meant I sucked it up, I did what I had to do to get the grade and do decent in the class, and I just stopped engaging with the teacher the best that I could. And I think that's really gonna be it for this video, guys. If you liked it, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All of that wonderful stuff helps out the channel a lot. And yeah, peace.